Let us, though this is an entirely related issue, do you know this government, through all sorts of bodies and quasi-official bodies, as it probably should, gives all sorts of money away for people to do stuff, to research stuff, and to do research into our society. Probably the most wacky of those things collectively is the thing called the Marsden Grants. And boy, some of the stuff that's got Marsden Grants recently is quite amazing. But also, a fair chunk of money is administered through the Royal Society, which is like the government's, no, it's not the government's, it's the top scientists in the country who join the Royal Society. It's hell of a woke. And it has been involved, along with the disinformation project of trying to freeze out and block the access of the platform to information, and it's played favourites. But it does get quite a lot of money from the government, quite a lot of your money, to make research grants. And someone who knows much more about it than I do is Dr. Michael Johnston from the New Zealand Initiative. He is an education expert. And to talk about how this money is being allocated, we are joined by Dr. Johnston now. Michael, how are you?
I'm well. How are you, Sean?
Very well, thank you. So how much for research grants does the Royal Society pony up each year?
I can't actually put the dollar figure on it for you, Sean, but it's many millions of dollars.
Millions of dollars, okay.
Yeah.
And what are the criteria to qualify for a Royal Society research grant?
Well, it depends what stage of your career you're at and what kind of grant you're applying for. The Marsden Fund that you mentioned before is actually administered by the Royal Society
as well.
But I think today your listeners might be most interested in something called the Mana Tuapapa Future Leadership Fund. Now, this is for young scholars.
Yeah.
And the concept of it, look, I very much support. We do need to support young scholars to get established in their research careers. And there is a lack in this country of what we might call postdoctoral funding. So that's when somebody's done a PhD and they want to bridge into an academic career. It's very, very difficult. And a lot of our best scientists in particular will simply leave the country for lack of money.
And that's because often scientific research doesn't have a directly commercial application. There are companies that are motivated to do this research.
Scientific research doesn't necessarily. Yeah. That's right. And neither should it, because, you know, when we're researching the fundamental sorts of things about the world, the commercial application, if there ever is one, is a long way down the track. But if we don't do that basic research, then we dry up the wellspring of human knowledge. So, look, I'm all in favour of some funding going to young scholars to advance their research. But the way in which this Mana Tuapapa Future Leadership Fellowship is being dished out may come as something of an eye-opener to your listeners.
Or not, Michael, I'm thinking. So tell me what it is about the criteria that have you going.
I mean, the first thing is that there's a lot of affirmative action going on. 50% of the scholarships must go to female applicants, which seems like a little bit of a redundant criteria.
Because 61%. Basically we're 50-50 male-female, so you'd think that would...
Well, yeah, I mean, more than half of the applicants are female. But look, 20% have to go to Māori and 10% have to go to Pacifica. And, we could debate the merits of affirmative action here, but the really strange thing about this is that the money is dished out at random.
What?
So it's essentially a lottery.
How? Surely you've got to have a research thing that the Royal Society looks at and says that is a worthy area of research that wouldn't get commercially funded.
There is an initial screening process where they look at the quality of the application and the proposed proposal. But look, I know somebody who has some inside information about this, who said that just 7 of 327 applications were screened out at the start. So it seems to be a very low bar for getting into the lottery. And once you're in the lottery, well, I mean, it's not quite random because, first of all, they randomly allocate 20% of the scholarships to Māori, and then from what's left, they allocate another 10% to Pacifica, and then 50%.
If you're a Samoan
women.
Māori woman, you are in like Flynn for this, right?
You sure are. You get 3 draws in the lottery.
Does that mean there's only 20% left for white men? If we've got 50% going to women, 20% going to Māori, 10% going to Pacifica, white blokes don't...
I mean, something of that order. It couldn't be more than... Well, it could be more than that because, of course, women overlap with Māori and Pacifica, so it would depend on how the other draws went. But in theory, it could be as few as that.
You are an expert and have worked for a long time in education, Michael.
I have.
Is this in any way a logical, productive, or positive way to allocate scholarships and funding?
Well, I mean, here's the thing. I have been around these kinds of processes where a committee sits around and tries to decide whose proposal should be funded. This is at university level rather than with the Royal Society or at national level. And I've got to say that, people are pretty bad at it. And so, look, if there was a really rigorous screening process to make sure that absolutely every application that got into the lottery was, say, in the top 10% or the top 15% or something like that of the quality, maybe this kind of process could be justified on the grounds that actually people are really bad at picking between, picking quality at that really top level. And it's hard. I mean, it's a bit like a job interview, I suppose. I mean, job interview panels often do a pretty bad job of choosing the best candidate for a job because what you get is a snapshot of somebody. This is the Royal
Society, Michael. It should be a shining beacon of logic and rationality.
Yeah, I'm trying to put the most charitable construction on this that I can, Sean. And however you dress it up, it isn't a good look to be dishing out money.
Well, I think the most charitable thing I could say about them, they're a bunch of woke bozos.
Yeah, well, they do have that tendency, don't they? We could tell some
Have
stories
you
about
raised
that.
this with the Royal Society?
I haven't, no.
Okay.
I've raised it with you.
Okay. So we might try and get some response. Can I tell you that whilst in the heyday of the madness, the politically correct madness, the Royal Society were holding or trying to hold seminars for media companies with Kate Hanna and the Disinformation Project. And I think Bomber Bradbury and others tried to get in on this, and they deliberately constructed this set of criteria that would keep any alternate media out of engaging with the Royal Society. It was quite remarkable and at some stages quite aggressive by them. And they seemed to me then to be completely captured.
This comes as no surprise to me, having had dealings with them myself on a professional level. They can be extremely troublesome if they suspect that you might want to say anything that doesn't come from their
if you're not a fellow traveller.
Yeah.